What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and in today's episode of the Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series, we are going to be going over Sudden Death Part 4, which is resetting the character's location when sudden death begins. So when we come into the game here, you can see my match timer is still 5 seconds, so we are going to result in a tie for all of these characters, so we're going to go to sudden death. You'll notice that the characters were reset to their previous position, the position that they actually spawned at when the game started. Now we don't have a way to do a rematch just yet, but if we go in here and launch again, you can see I can move multiple characters. So I moved all 4 characters, timer runs out, all of the characters are reset back to their default position, and they can't move until the sudden death text goes away. So now you can really see how all the variables we set for sudden death are working together. We're going to reset a few additional ones in this episode as well that we missed last time. That way our sudden death can be fully functional. If you want to get caught up in the series before checking out this episode, I'll link you to the entire playlist of the Super Smash Brothers tutorial right here in the top right corner. Alternatively, if you don't care about that and you only care about the sudden death, I'll link you to the first episode of Sudden Death right here in the top right corner. That's Sudden Death Part 1. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So this is a code and blueprint tutorial series. We're going to be doing almost everything in the code today. So let's go into our Visual Studio, and specifically let's go to our SSB template character.h. Now the first thing I want to do in here is add a variable that is going to track where our starting location was. You could keep track of your player start as a whole and move the characters back to that position, but I don't feel that's really necessary. As long as we have the location of the player start, we can move the characters back to those starting positions, and the user, the player, will be none the wiser of how we did it. And then we also have to store less data since it's just a vector for the location instead of the entire actor for the player start. So I'm going to scroll down to my variables, and specifically I want to make an F vector, and I've called this one starting spawn location. It's U property of edit anywhere blueprint read write with a category of character. So edit anywhere and blueprint read write allows us to edit this in the blueprints. As you can see here, the comment says the location this character spawned for the first time. And I make that clear because respawning the characters is not what we want. We don't want to reset this location every time a character respawns. It's the initial spawn when they entered the stage. Once we have this F vector, we can go to our SSB template character.cpp and go to the constructor. We want to set a default value for this variable. So I'm going to scroll down here. I try to put them in the same order that they are in the header file. So I'm going to go starting spawn location equals F vector. And I'm going to default them to 0.0f everywhere, X, Y, and Z. This isn't really what we want because we don't want a position that is not on our stage. So I'm putting this here as a default value so that we have something, but it's not the real value that we actually care about. We're going to set that in begin play though, because if we do it too early, if we do it in the constructor, the character might not have information relating to the starting spawn location. Yes, the class was created, but it doesn't mean that they were spawned at that position yet. And when we try and grab the starting location, it could be invalid data. So we want to make sure that this character is fully ready to go. We know they're spawned and at that location, which case we can grab the location from that starting spot. But in the constructor, I'm just setting it to a default value of all zeros. It's not even required that you do this. It's just good practice to do so. That way we know what our absolute default value for this is. We want to override begin play in our SSB template character.h. That way we can implement our begin play for our SSB template character. You've seen me do this for a few things in the series, such as the tick function. However, we can go to our public section of our class. I'm going right below my constructor, and I'm adding this virtual void begin play override. So virtual void begin play override means we are taking a function that is able to be overridden from our parent class, which is the character class. SSB template character is a child of the character class. The character class has a function called begin play, which is essentially what we do when this character is fully ready to be used. All the spawning, all the creation is finished. We want this because, again, we want to set our position there. So overriding this allows us to customize the behavior for our SSB template character. At this point, we can go back to SSB template character.cpp and scroll down right below the constructor and add a new function. Void a SSB template character : begin play. Now, in here, we still want to do everything that the character class begin play does. We're a child of that class, but everything that the character's begin play does, we still want to do in this character. We just want to expand upon it. So to make sure that we do that, we have to call super : begin play. Super means the super class, which is the parent class. So essentially we're saying parent : begin play. And then after we've done that begin play logic, we're expanding upon it with this logic here, where we're actually going to set our starting spawn location to the current actor location, right? The actor was spawned at the player start, and now we know we're in begin play, the spawning has finished. Their location is accurate to where we want it to be, so we can just set our starting spawn location to the actor's location at this point. Perfect. So we're good to go here. Now, let's go to our SSB template game mode.cpp. Let's scroll down to our enter sudden death function, which we have right here. In this function, I've added a new line to our for loop where we're looping through all the players. So previously we were calling prepare for sudden death, which was getting the characters ready for everything they'll need for sudden death. And in fact, I can change this comment now. It's not setting each character's damage counter to the starting sudden death value, but rather setting all characters to their sudden death default values. I'm also going to actually move the characters in this function. You could do this in the prepare for sudden death function that we have on the character themselves, but the thing with that is the game mode is only on the server. So the game mode is the one executing this command. If we allow the characters to reposition themselves using this method, that is a common way for people to implement cheats. We want to avoid this, so I'm going to have the game mode manage each of the players. I think that makes more sense. So in this for loop, I am going to grab my players at index I. Remember, we're looping through all the players, so every player is going to be moved to the correct spot. I'm calling set actor location, and the location I'm passing in is the starting spawn location. Now, to grab the starting spawn location, we need a function because that variable by default is not public. So we're going to go back to SSB template character.h. You can see I've added a function here, an accessor or getter for starting spawn location. Quite simple. Basically, it returns an f vector, and it's called get starting spawn location. So we're just going to return the value. This function is in public, even though the variable is not. Those of you familiar with getters and accessors will understand how this works, but if you don't, and you're not familiar with it, that's perfectly fine. Just scroll down somewhere in your character class where you can make this function. F vector, ASSB template character, : get starting spawn location, and we're just returning the starting spawn location variable. That's all we're doing. That way we can access that variable in other classes. So now with that done, we should be able to call this function in SSB template game mode.cpp. So players at index I, get starting spawn location, it's what's being passed into the set actor location. So basically just move them back to the starting location. So now we are good to go there. That's what we need to do to move them. I want to go back to our SSB template character.cpp, go back to the prepare for sudden death function. I want to update a few things in here related to items. So we have our overlapped item, equipped item, and item type variables. First one here is overlapped item. This is the item we're actually overlapping with if we want to display a prompt to the user, or just if we want to pick up an item when the character is within range to do so. However, in sudden death, we're moving the location back. Overlapped item would reset on its own since the overlap is ending. However, if for any reason they teleport and they're still on another item or something weird like that, I'm just going to set it to null pointer. I don't want them to be able to overlap with an item at this point. We're going to reset their items and take all that away from them. So overlapped item is null pointer. Equipped item is the same deal. If they actually have an item that they have currently equipped or are currently using right now, I'm going to take that away from them as well. So I'm going to set equipped item back to null pointer too. This last one technically doesn't need to be in the character class anymore, so we're going to take it out. But for the time being, we can just reset it back to none. So the item type should be e item type : none. The character does not have an item type. Instead, we're going to use the equipped items type when we're checking for this in the future. So this is outdated and should be removed. At this point, we can go and launch the editor. And when you come back in here, you'll see that everything is working as intended. Our characters can only move after the sudden death text goes away, but they are moved back to their appropriate locations, and now sudden death is working wonderfully. So anyway, guys, I hope this helped you improve your sudden death in your game, and if it did, please subscribe. It does more for myself in the series than anything else you can do. It is highly appreciated. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my YouTube membership, Discord subscribers, and Patreon supporters. If you're interested in any of the perks you see on the screen here, I'll give you the link to the Patreon right here. There's also a Discord community where I help you if you run into any problems, and that support is completely free, so feel free to click the link in the description to go there. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you, so thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Goodbye.